Yeah, that's a 180 kickflip into a reality check.
I don't know if a dating quiz is the best distraction from the disaster you've made of your life, but hey, what do I know? You're the one in charge here, Jala. You'd better answer honestly, though. You can't keep any secrets from me.
And just like that, that's how you get to the secret level where you hear me talking about thirsty suitors for a little while. Welcome back to Game Pass Ghost Should I Play series. Today we're going to be talking about thirsty suitors, but before I get into it, I just wanted to say a quick thank you to you guys. Hiatus last week as I was taking care of a family member who was recovering from day surgery, so I wasn't able to make my post, but I'm looking at a double feature this week to catch up, so yeah, keep your eyes peeled for more content, yeah? Hey, so without further ado, let's get into it. If you're on YouTube, you will have already seen about 45 seconds of the introductory tutorial, but the intro to the game does some things very well. It introduces the exceptionally fun movement mechanics. It's Tony Hawk. He's back. And he'll never die, as long as this keeps looking as fun as it does in video games. The major drawback with skateboarding-based gameplay, though, is the angular way in which one travels. Sort of at a 45-degree angle, you got to stop, pivot, but this makes up for that in its entirety with an effortlessly fun, renewable pastime. With a very cool nod to listicles and BuzzFeed quizettes, your character finds himself drifting off into a quiz notebook on a long-distance bus ride, only to be guided by the narrator through an obstacle course to help you get to grips with movement and dexterity challenges. After the bus ride, these movement and text box responses will make up a larger part of how you play the game, the remaining third being built upon a brilliant turn-based combat system that utilizes the active actions of Sea of Stars to mitigate and increase damage through pressing a button right as your attack connects. This, like in Sea of Stars, means that you cannot play the title passively. One must be actively looking for the weakness of foes, playing a fun rock, paper, scissors with inflicting temporary status effects like Thirst for a chance at massive damage. As you wend your way through flying hula hoops and floating platforms, you'll be posed questions by a gopher-esque being that is really keen on getting to know your personality through dating questions. Go ahead and answer them naturally, as it's building a profile to suit your run through the game. I find it interesting I was more heavily one, but ended up only 1 or 2 points ahead of the others. It's a lot of fun and likely to get you to grips subconsciously with the extent of your actions and responses and how closely linked they are to your listed responses. This also gets you thinking about how you talk and interact with beings in the day-to-day and what kind of messages we put out and how that places us within a label in the outside world. It also subtly reinforces how keen the game is to label Jala and how in some small way we might have been too. The nice part about this, though, is that it teaches you through the intro, rather than say a Fallout game or a Bethesda game, where your responses vary largely from what is written in front of you. It teaches you kind of what those responses are going to be ahead of time. But yes, to continue, the narrator, who you will also have seen in the intro, is a cooler representation of your biological sister, a wish I think we can all relate to. But like a genie wish gone wrong, however, she is very sarcastic. But yeah, after that bombshell is revealed, we're kind of off into the land of heart-wrenching. You stumble across what I assume is your ex most closely tied to your responses as you answer the dangerous question of if you've ever been in love. And I don't know, is it getting hot in here or is it just me? I wasn't expecting deep questions in a game about my thirstiest of suitors. So yeah, after the gut-churning intro in a literal and physiological sense, your stomach churns as you realize there's no going back and your exes are here to shine a light on you. And not on the parts that you might like. I'll not be sharing what I got, but hey, let's just say I was aligned with my character. They use fixed camera angles, which is a bit of a throwback. You know, I'm not a huge fan. Resident Evil 1 is sort of the creme de la creme of that, but I'm not keen on it when it's used outside in other titles. Maybe I was around at the time when free camera motion was transitioned over from onto the right stick from sort of fixed camera angles as you wander around a game. But I don't know. It's something. It frees up the right stick for other things as well. But it's something that I think I've found better suited for sort of strategy-based gameplay or Diablo titles. But you know, I do admire and enjoy this game. It doesn't detract from the feeling. I think it's just one of those things that jumps out. However, it's immediately made up for by the fact that the narrator is a two-way street, and you actually have illuminating conversations with the protagonist that you have to come up with responses for, either making for a far more jaded narration experience, kind of a you versus your sister, or a slightly softer one as you realize you're more in common than separates you. But because familial relationships are hard, this isn't going to be an easy experience. You're returning after a forced exodus due to some irreconcilable decisions, like leaving town with your older girlfriend because this place just doesn't get it, man. It's a common story in the States and usually played out like this. Now, before I get into this, I'm going to make a disclaimer here. I've lived in Canada. I lived in small town Canada, been through small town states. I have known people from all walks of life and backgrounds. I love small towns for different reasons to reasons than I love cities. People are different, unexpected, and I've seen in the revival of a lot of these small towns a beauteous new way of living and acceptance. However, doesn't detract from the fact that during these times I have seen a mass exodus for people who are strange or different from small towns to cities. So let's get into it. So the way it plays out usually is that someone from a small town meets a partner who keys them into things that they hadn't thought about growing their thinking, and the people there despise that growing of thinking because they want it to be the same as when they were little and could run folks out of town for being different, odd, weird, gay. So they try in their own special brand of fucked up to prevent this union, which ends up pushing away the people that your familial member cares about, only to then blame the partner when both of them leave, not understanding that the actions, though done from a place of love, were not done in the right manner. Don't know if there is ever a right manner, but the manner in which you carried yourself at that point was just not right and ended up pushing away the person you care about. However, it is rare that we see reconciliation in those situations, and as a result, the writers behind this game are genius, and I don't even know if they know the extent of what they've done here. This isn't one of those stories that runs in three parts, Act 1, 2, 3. It's a messy, beautiful, melting pot of emotion and interjecting opinions told through the eyes of someone who's feeling rather lost after making the wrong decision and can't even find a place to fall gracefully. It's an experience that we can all relate to, and gnaws at wounds that I'm not sure I had healed, which is the quintessential beauty of it. It also opens the door not just to its own populace, but others struggling with the same issues, the real beauty of representation being that there is a peace for all, and the aid that comes with leaning on one another is available. Learning from other cultures, learning from other backgrounds, we're all struggling with the same things in a different manner. The wonderfully beautiful part about this as well is that a large portion of people, like in Eliza P., will bring their own sensibilities to this topic, and if the non-straight Commander-Shepard relationship responses are anything to go by, they'll likely go for a partner of the opposite sex. In a beautiful about-face then from the developer, you can play as a straight you as a male gamer and still learn a whole bunch about non-cisgendered relationships vicariously as you play, which is a mechanic that is just amazing. If you pick to align with where your brain is at instead of where Jala's is at, you will end up learning more about same-sex relationships potentially. It's a very, very interesting place to be. Now, I'll tell you what I wasn't also looking for, but absolutely found to be surprising and uplifting, was testing my immediate response time. When you come across Machan, the dog, in the diner, you're given a series of prompts with which to dap up your dog. It's actually a really brilliant bit of animation at T. It's between you watching a dog and a screen for the next prompt. It's adorable, humorous, and a great way of drawing you into the world and helping you with your understanding of how it works. Yeah, to get back to something maybe a little more sassy, which is the other thing this game does well, rather than stick in the sweet. The narrator is amazing. You can hear the irritation dripping off every word with this sort of know-it-all attitude. You're forced, when in the diner, to pick through the options. Each of them offer you perspective and depth from your internal viewpoint, and kind of educating you whilst keeping your attention through option dialogues. Don't rush through them, or you may end up with sort of the wrong person starting a relationship and then sort of leaning into another one afterwards. My first playthrough, I don't think I romanced anybody actually, which is good because I recommend multiple playthroughs. This world is just so deep and rich in cultural background, from localized snack references like cashew nuts to just how bad they can be for you, to the fact that Jala's dad is running some sort of counterintelligence snack operation involving the teenager in the local corner store. It's amazing. And it's integrative as well, which is beautiful. I mean, while you're all still mulling this over, your third grade X walks in, and your introduction to the thirst level system that defines the relationship between characters kind of comes about. It gives you a one-sided bio, which is excellent, as it further places you in the mind of Jala as it's written from her point of view viewpoint to illuminate the responses she gives, which preclude the first combat we'll see. And then that's it. I mean, you meet your ex, he walks in, you ask him for a ride, and then you're into combat. But there goes another wonderful part of this. The turn-based combat is exceptional. Time-based attacks from Sea of Stars make another triumphant display. I'm thinking it may become the new industry standard for turn-based games. But at this point, it becomes necessary to sort of give you the meta hints. So you get a little notification from your Uncle Hinty, which is hilarious. But he's your uncle who will guide you through the more niche and complex parts of the title and its combat, as well as give you culturally important background information. So by now, you should realize the title is a brilliant use of both cultural knowledge and gaming conventions in a deep blend of mechanically masterworked game design that mines from a very rich vein of culture and very real relationship tropes from within that background. As we see a bigger call for specialized mental health services for South Asian men and women, I hope to see more of these titles as more and more specialized learning becomes readily available to both the public and to counselors. And on that note, it has done its work. There are references that run rampant in a recent call for more looks into specialized mental health services for South Asian communities. A brilliant study led at the University of Toronto that I referenced in one of the assignments to get my counseling qualification highlights the staggering lack of focused support systems, specifically for South Asian women, young South Asian women, and specifically to do with intergenerational trauma and familial support systems. At one point, the narrator says, like most South Asian men, all it takes to destroy his ego is a word from his mother, which is a priceless gag. A friend of mine in my youth was a hard fella, but would jump out of his skin whenever his mother screamed. The backgrounds of the inner worlds here are beautiful and clearly influenced by titles to do with mental health as well, like the absolutely stellar Psychonauts. The reason why it's important to do away with ego and get to the core of the matter here, though, is that in their inner worlds, they're all invulnerable, except to their own self-doubt. These boss battles play out as a larger scale version of the random battle encounters you'll have seen thus far, but with cinematics, choices, and relationship building moments. The idea of doing battle in turn-based combat instead of having the conversation play out naturally is actually a really fun injection for a character running from themselves and for characters who may not actually be open to reconciliation immediately. It enforces the idea of pushing through the difficult interactions to find the necessary closure, however. Further, it explores the ideas of neutral ground reconciliation with people when you can't avoid them, like when families are intertwined or communities. In Western mental health, there's a growing movement to excise those you don't want to be around, which is great until you're either made to be around them once again or you realize you've cut off your right hand because of a paper cut. In situations like this, you're not actually prepared and it can cause for further wounds, not just to you, but to other people's perception of you as well, which isn't necessarily healing. It's kind of amusing then that at that moment of reconciliation, even when it's not fully complete, you're afforded one of the best weapons in the game, or one of the best summons in the game, in the form of your Ma. So, as mentioned prior, the Mom summon is truly incredible. It's first introduced as an ego-breaking move. Your character calls out "Ma" like a child being teased, and then points at the opposition, all done via QTEs. It is so funny. I don't think I actually managed to hit any of those QTEs because of the amusement with the whole situation. She then delivers a chapel smackdown. My dear Latin friends may know it as the the heat-seeking chancla. It's just amazing. All of this comes with complete voice lines dependent on the enemy that you're facing, so this boss gets a different contextualized line, whereas scrub enemies get given a different treatment, from disappointed tusks to disappointed remarks about you hanging out with runabouts and layabouts. But Yamar runs the gauntlet, just dissing everybody. And it ends really well too. In a bit of a twist on the regular gaming bit, you reconcile rather than rain napalm. This teaches alternate dispute resolution, where you can reconcile and, whilst not necessarily agree, seek forward motion in relationships. Your characters have the real conversation your character has been avoiding for so long, and some of the warmth of kinship sparked by the embers of your fight begins to take hold. And then a really clever piece of gameplay design. This is your first real look at the level up screen and how it kind of affects the narrative too. Narrative that all too soon will come into play when dun 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 the League of Evil Exes is convened and they find out Jarla's back in town. So the questions posed early on in the interview with your parents after getting home are written very cleverly to be approachable from all life's walks, but the response is going to be heavily in line with an upbringing and style of life that is heavily South Indian Tamil. The beauty in this is Jala Jairatne is a first generation American, and those issues are on full display too, from clothing to style and mannerisms that differ heavily from her parent and grandparent lines. And speaking of family, I think most of us hopefully have family members who make you feel safe and have always just been, cooler than the rest of your friends. And as a result, in a quite cool about face, whilst your close family won't help you, a lot of your detective work to help you uncover what's going on is done by talking to your gossiping auntie, who is introduced as a specialist in messy lesbian psychodrama. Brilliant. So, as a result of this, your Auntie Chandra is the gossip queen of Timber Hills, and more importantly, she's the only member of your family in support of your lifestyle seemingly early on. She's also absolutely yoked, but in a great spin, she's very much on the level with you, dodging an opportunity to mock you and instead serves up some kind but hard wisdom. She further fills you in on the goings on and tells you of the backing plots. Your grandmother is upset her daughter didn't marry an Indian, and now her other granddaughter, your sister, is marrying someone from even further away. As a result, her stranglehold on the emotional state of your family is tightened, and she is exercising her abilities, even from across the planet, to try and prevent the same thing from happening to Jala. It's not just culture and mental health, though, that this game is learned from. It seems Toe Jam and Earl influenced this in a major way. Strangely, I hadn't even thought about that title when it hit me in the face, from the skateboarding to the random gift boxes on the ground. Further, the gift boxes also have a chance of being bad. My first one was an arranged suitor that was sent by Grandma. Brilliant, but a really clever nod to a series that had done the skateboarding thing very well before. So anyway, after this illuminating call, and this goes to show you how wonderfully the game is crafted, your dad calls on the phone and asks you to come home. So I don't know if you had Tamil friends in your youth, but come home now means like 15 minutes ago, so I ran back home despite not actually being forced to by the game, and wow, that's deeply programmed. Once you're home, though, you have a cooking lesson that once again actually teaches you how to cook in a beautiful effort at reviving and teaching the skills required to make Sri Lankan food. We've seen YouTube videos, cookbooks, education from our elders, and now there's yet another way to learn what many worry is a dying art amidst a young generation. When you finally finish, and if you achieve the highest level of skill, your dish then gives whoever is helping you to create it a memory of elsewhere or a better time. The first one you make gives your mother a memory of being home and young with your father. It's beautiful, and the first moments made me tear up at a video game recently. After you're done with all of these moments, you sit with your dad, who's watching old clips of you playing basketball, and he carries you on up to bed despite being quite grown. It's charming, and this won't change throughout the game, and maintains an adorable function of changing time. If you want to go from today to tomorrow, you're going to have to go and see your dad on the couch and watch inane discussions that are quite sweet about, well, they're not about what they're about, but it gets warmer over time, and it's really pleasant. In the morning, afterwards, you discuss your sister's wedding, and as it's a fusion wedding, there should be fusion food. Yeah, Dad chimes in. This game is really, really well thought out. The chances to cook afterwards are there, and you can use them to create more healing items for yourself, but more importantly, they can be used to absorb more from the family story-wise, and to get your family to expound on things they don't wish to discuss. Your dad's giggle is hilarious, it brings me such joy, and his Bollywood flavorings and dance moves are beautiful, and he remains a beautifully warm example of what being post overtly and aggressively masculine in a world that is changing to move into a more equalitarian space, hopefully. It's brilliant. It's just endlessly warm support from a place that makes your character feel like they have a safe place to fall, that also serves as, yeah, just a place that makes the home inside the game feel more like a home. So, by now, you've reconciled with your family a little bit, enough to know that you have a place to stay while you work through some of the other issues that revolve around you coming back at this time. So, at this point, you'll meet Tyler, who is introduced as sort of an antagonist, but you realize over time there's reasons for this. But you find out you can also hear the narrator, which confirms that there's something larger at play here that concerns the entire future of the town. There's a weird mascot from an abandoned amusement park who appears to be preying on the LGBTQIA plus kids. And hilariously, Tyler won't put up with any of your narrator's crap in an early hint at a quite brilliant reveal late in the title. Hey guys, so as mentioned prior, my notes were a little jumbled this week and it's not as put together as usual, but I guess here's your spoiler warning. We're going to get towards sort of talking about late game pieces here. It's going to be fairly rapid fire. This is not the way I usually do these, but I'm going to just pull out some things that were really beautiful from the title. But yeah, spoiler warning here for things late in the game. So, when I was young, you would have conversations with people who knew exactly the answer already, but they were just testing and probing you for a response. So, sort of mid part of the game, your Ma flexes her precognitive abilities as she knows exactly why you're making a specific dish and who you're making it for, since you don't like it, and she knows the person who does. When this happens, you won't have realized at that point that your family is still friends with all your exes because this is a very small town and they're all part of the community. It's adorable. But if you want to have your mind blown like this regularly by genuinely impressive writing acts and get so close to fourth wall breaking commentary that it just narrowly avoids it, cook. Just cook. Every opportunity you get. It'll give you background information and it's a great way of seeing what the character motivations are and what the background story has and what has been going on before you even arrived, from being out of town. It's brilliant and there's a very subtle family versus relationships matter going on in the background, and upon facing Dia you come to understand a little bit more what's happening. So you need to summon a specialist in messy lesbian psychodrama, clearly. And you're not going to call your mum up there. So once again, you call your Auntie C. But this time, with real physical manifestation of her kindness, you rip through a couple sets of modified weights with her. It's brilliant. And then she buffs you and allows you to take down Dia. This fight because it is important for a later point. So hold on to that for now. But we're going to move forwards just a little bit into another point, which is, wow, okay, who the hell aside from the informed could have seen what was to come vis-a-vis Bardstein? And yet here we are, in-game, you're in the kitchen with your parents when your dad drops the news that your sister's fiance is Palestinian studying for his master's, which, amazing. This game is so far ahead of its time and was during development. I mean, you follow that up with a very difficult to broach topic in writing, and you get answers. So you started to ask the hard questions amongst your family, and those are the questions that actually rebuild the relationships. So you follow it up with a conversation with your dad, where he talks a little bit more about the fact he knew you weren't straight, and then as a result of this was primed by your Auntie C. He admits to feelings of fear and worry, not because of you, but because of the world's reaction to you. He then further confides that you felt safe because of how he treated his sister after finding out she too was lesbian. Although Jala is more bi, Pan probably. They didn't talk for years, but this is how you handle apologetic life. He never told you because he's ashamed, but he is thankful to have been forgiven and to have a relationship with his sister. And the writing strikes yet again. His shame is formed from not standing up for his sister in a situation that society would have viewed him poorly for. Further, his understanding has turned to rage over time as he's angry with Dia's parents, if you remember the fight I asked you to hold in your mind. But showing him to have a further depth of character, as he's never outright angry in this title. He's always seemingly place of warmth and level-headed kindness to Jala. In this moment, we understand him to be working with old world ways and means to support the new world values. And yeah, it's heart-wrenching and also heartwarming in equal measure, which I think is often forgotten. Life can be relentlessly hard, but it is those that we find shelter from and get through it with that can provide the greatest places of comfort. And in reconciling with this, Jala finds a new place to fall, and I think it is a beautiful bit of story. Finally, I'm going to, pop in a little bit of a personal one. If you cook chicken kotiroti, a dish I used to eat often with someone from my past, and you won't be able to contain your laughter as your dad and your narrator have a back and forth about arson. I won't go further into it, but I laughed so hard I missed the steps in cooking. And whilst the dish itself used to bring up horrible memories and beautiful flavour, this has really replaced that memory partially and has gone some way to healing that bad association as I remember fondly the more positive aspects. Yeah, so on to the next point. In a hitherto unmentioned coup de grace, the mascot, Soundy the bear for the abandoned amusement park, wants Jala to bring her ex back to town so the mayor will throw the upcoming election. By the time you find this out, there are so many stories going on in this game that it is like playing a version of Sin City. All of these threads are being introduced, nullified, brought back together, rectified, and then solved in a warm and emotional way. It's such a unique title in that manner. And it teaches a clever lesson about, requiring detractors that care for you to sharpen you against what is to come. We need people to say no to us instead of just running along with us. Otherwise, we're going to get big-headed and start doing more and more ridiculous things. Yeah, some of the best thought, though, has gone into this game in how it plays out, not just with gaming tropes, a seemingly leaned into concept recently, but how it plays with the ideals of masculinity, placing Irfan in the role of seemingly a Jasmine from Aladdin, tending to his tiger, once more an animal with great symbolism for Desi people. But if Irfan's is good, Bruno's is arguably better. He is the bad boy, but his inner world transforms him into a Power Ranger suit. And wow, that's such an about face. It was brilliant. You get to fight the different versions of himself, and again, another brilliant mental health bit injected into a game rife with them. And in the wake of a world where we're sort of all joining Facebook groups to stalk the people we swipe right on, the context of the conversation that comes up before Andior's reconciliation, it hits different, because apparently he's the group stalker, and only a handful seem worried. I mean, that cutscene really wasn't very comfortable for me whatsoever, but it's amusing, though, because this has all clearly been set up by someone, and at this point you're thinking, maybe it's the parents, maybe Soundy the bear, the sister maybe at this point to get her back to the city, and they all just meet up and discuss plans on where and when to confront their ex, and oh my god, it just got a little too real in here. Andelay's reconciliation is beautiful. It really speaks to the soul and depth of heaviness felt by all migrants, something that, I could relate to in that. And I think a tough one to broach, but really, really well written, portrayed, played out. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to say I did call it. The sister was in fact responsible in part for all of this, along with her husband, which only really reveals itself late in the game. But you will also at this point come to realize, whilst it was introduced as a cool version of your sister, the narrator is very much your internal voice, which is flavored by a person you care about deeply, which is your sister. And your internal relationship with your sister in your mind doesn't actually match the relationship with your sister outside of your mind. And it goes some length to talking about the way the scariest thing that we have to do, talk to those who we care about, who we have hurt. We build up that idea in our mind so much more over a period of time until it becomes almost unconfrontable. Right, last thing, let's talk about Grandma Party. She is a hard ass. Yeah, and a tough as nails final boss. I'm immensely proud of myself for getting her health down as far as I did before I got hit with a whirlwind of attacks that I should have realized were a fight you're supposed to lose. The loss is pretty devastating. We're only one to that point, and followed up by an annihilating cutscene of you and your loved ones. In the wake of this trope that we haven't really seen deployed to this point, you're once again sort of left in that pitfall. The ending is brutal. You bring in your ma to help you end business as usual with a summon, but the fight ends up pausing and she ends up, yeah, I won't spoil what happens, but it is, nonetheless, it is concurrent with the theme of the game of reconciliation. Yeah. Alright, thank you very much for sticking with me. This has been sort of wondering and different to the title reviews that I usually do. Obviously, it's been a short and very tough couple of weeks for me, helping people recover from surgery and just kind of trying to fit this in along the side. But thank you for sticking with me, as always. So we're going to do the quick wrap up, the TLDR for my Reddit people. So you should play this if you like Life is Strange or story-driven titles that are interspersed with brilliant and very wacky subplots. You know, you're mainly playing through the gameplay in order to reach the next story bit. If you're struggling with expressing or talking about migrant trauma with family, especially intergenerationally, if you want to explore mental health games, this being a turn-based Psychonauts essentially. If you like the early Tony Hawk titles, there are more fun skateboarding challenges in this than you can shake a stick at. You should probably avoid this if you struggle with angular movement mechanics, you're not keen on turn-based battles, or you're not keen on persona-based combat styles where you kind of expose a weakness and then take advantage of it. And you know, if you've watched the trailer, you know if you're gonna probably gel well with this game, if it is in alignment with your beliefs. If it's not, you're probably not going to find as much, but I actually do recommend you play it. But also, again, if it's something that you think you can't wrap your head around, I'm not going to coerce you in that manner. Anyway, thank you very much. I think this is a wonderful game. I think story and gameplay combined beautifully with a really, really wonderful, deep love and understanding of cultural backgrounds and knowledge. Anyway, thank you very much. This will be a double feature week, so there should be another video coming out shortly. As always, thank you. Like and subscribe. Stay safe, everyone.